Hey 555ers, Andrew here. Excited to bring you some GMTs of the channel finally. It seems like I've been talking about this for years. So stay tuned for two accessible sub $1,000 GMT watches. Coming to you with a fun first look and first impressions video of a couple of types of watches that I have been wanting to feature on the channel for a long time. And of course, that is the GMT watch. And of course, what is so special about GMT watches is that it allows you to keep time in another time zone. And actually with both of these watches with their rotating bezels, theoretically in two different time zones beyond the timekeeping time zone. So that is a really interesting feature, very useful for many people. And it's just a cool complication in the world of horology. And what we're seeing this year in late 2018, early 2019, is GMT sports watches from micro brands in the sub $1,000 price range with ETA movements. So that's pretty exciting. ETA movements, of course, are Swiss movements, and they've been typically found in larger brands from, say, the Swatch group. And there was an embargo for a while on these ETA movements, and there was a thought that maybe the Swiss movements wouldn't be available for micro brands. Well, it appears at least in early 2019 that they are indeed accessible after all. And so in this video, we're going to be looking at these two watches. We're going to look at the Zelos Horizons GMT, and this one is in hunter green, and the Boldr Globetrotter, and this is in the black blue configuration, or as more is commonly known thanks to Rolex, the Batman configuration. Obviously these watches are spec'd out very differently in terms of their case dimensions, but you'll be surprised at some of the similarities here, and I think that you'll find the comparison an enjoyable one. And guys, as you know, I'm experimenting with this initial first look format. So in this first look format, I am going to go ahead and just give my first impressions. I think that they might be interesting to compare and stack up with the final review of these watches, which will happen with each watch respectively. And up first, let's take a look at the Zelos Horizons GMT. As I mentioned, this is in hunter green. Now this is a very interesting little GMT watch coming in at a conservative 40 millimeters. And so it wears very nicely, especially with this thin ceramic rotating bezel. And it is a bi-rotating bezel, as you can see, with the hours indices set up for a GMT time here. Other things that are of course noteworthy, you're looking at a radially brushed bezel in green, reminiscent actually quite a bit of this watch. Recognize that watch at all? Yes. The Alpinist seems to be a bit of an inspiration as far as the dial goes here, with respect to the choice of green. Not exactly the same, but certainly similar, and who can blame them? This is one of the most iconic greens out there, and this radially brushed format is quite captivating. So once again, you're looking at a 40 millimeter case, 20 millimeter lugs, and this is a lug-to-lug length of 45 millimeters, so definitely on the wearable side for even, say, a sub 7-inch wrist. I have a 7 1/4 inch wrist, and this wears on the medium to smaller side, which is great for a micro brand watch. It is also thin, relatively speaking, for this tall rotating bezel at 12 millimeters thick. It has a threaded crown, which is a signed Zelos crown here. And it has 200 meters of water resistance. Other things worth noting: applied indices. It has an applied logo, and it has a date aperture at 6 o'clock, and that date aperture is actually color matched to the dial, so that is pretty cool. But the most interesting or captivating for me feature of this watch is actually ceramic matte bezel, which is sort of a blended black and gray here, especially at the 3 and 9 o'clock markers. You can see it's just kind of beguiling, especially with the iridescent dial. It is, of course, a double dome sapphire crystal with a little bit of chamfering on the edge, as we've seen from many microbrews. And on the back, actually, we see some really interesting things too. So as I mentioned, these are both ETA movements, and the kind of bog ETA movement for GMT is a 2893, and these are both Elabore-grades, and this one has a custom rotor on it specifically made for Zelos. So that is very cool and very unique, and of course the display case back is neat for any watch enthusiast to get a look at the movement where you see some very basic pearlage in the back. Not bad, definitely not bad. Now, unfortunately, this colorway of the Horizons GMT, this hunter green version, is sold out. And it's sold out at an early buy-in price of $649. There are a number of other colorways still available, but I wanted to get this video right away because before May 19th, that is when watch aficionados will be able to get this $649 price. After the 19th, it's going to increase to $849. And while I still think that this is a compelling watch in many ways for that $850 price range, as far as I can tell, there's not really anything, especially in the micro brand world, that's competing with this watch for $650. Again, traditional case size. You can see it has some nice traditional finishing, like these big chamfers here. Much like Omega in some respects, the double rotating bezel with the ceramic insert. It's really quite a good value. My initial impression of this watch is that if it holds up and it proves to be reliable, all of the features that are packed into this watch make it quite an interesting and compelling value. Although you do unfortunately have to pick a different color than the hunter green, although there is a variety of different colors out there. As with both of these watches, these are manufactured overseas. My guess is probably in Hong Kong, which means there are probably some parts sourced from China, but then final assembly is happening in a higher end factory in Hong Kong. We're at a point for sure in 2019 where I'm quite comfortable saying that watches from the East have caught up with entry-level Swiss watches. This compares very favorably to, say, a Glycine or a Hamilton in this sub $1,000 price range, and that is really quite exciting. But we are going to wear this watch and enjoy it for a little while before the final verdict comes in the review, where I'll be able to talk to some of the problems that I perhaps will encounter with a deeper look at this watch. Now, the Horizons is shipping initially on a Tropic rubber strap, and this is similar to the strap that I remember seeing on the Zelos Mako, which I previously reviewed. A handsome retro style strap with nice waffling so that it's breathable, but for me, I can tell you straight away that it is pretty short. So I will show you a quick wrist shot real quick, and then we will get to the Boldr Globetrotter. All right, here is the Boldr Globetrotter. This big boy is coming in at 44 millimeters. It's a similar watch in respect to the type of functionality that it has, in that it has a 60-click bi-directional rotating bezel. And again, you're looking at a ceramic insert, but here, this time, rather than a brushed or matte insert, you have a polished ceramic insert. It actually fits really nicely with the flat sapphire crystal here and glossy dial. So you get much more of even though obviously the case shape isn't at all similar to a Rolex, you get more of a Rolex vibe here, if that makes sense. A Rolex bling, maybe you could say. And it is a bold watch. Just look at the thickness of this rotating bezel alone, let alone the case thickness, which is 14.5 millimeters. And let's just look at that side by side with the Horizons GMT, quite a bit thicker, as you can see. Now, I'll be honest that a thicker case like this is not typically to my taste. I just prefer something a little bit more versatile. But there are definitely guys who are larger wrists than me, or just have a different aesthetic and prefer something maybe more brutalist or modernistic in their case. And for those guys who are maybe riding in, I don't know, lifted Jeeps or something, this could be a great GMT for you. This watch is different also in the colorway. Obviously, you've got a little bit more mainstream colorway here with the black dial. I do really like the use of the blue GMT hand, but the orange second hand. And it just is a handsome looking dial design, if perhaps a little bit more commonplace than on the Zelos. But in either case, you have great access to all of the different functions that a traditional GMT can have, and very bold use of hands that are going to nicely make this watch readable in a variety of environments. Now this watch, the Horizons, has a Superluminova dial, and actually initial impressions of this are not super impressive. This one, the lume is much better. It's a BGW9, which is a blue lume, and it's hard to tell in this lighting, but it really does glow a very pretty and bold blue. And so that's one thing that I like. You are looking at a watch that just comes with a rubber strap that's actually meant to be cut to size. And I haven't done that because I'm not a huge fan of rubber straps. The Tropic strap is going to be coming off the Zelos very shortly, and we're going to be getting a leather strap probably for both of these watches. So again, to round up this comparison here, you're looking at a much larger watch with the Boldr Globetrotter, a watch that's coming in at a very bold 44 millimeters, and it is 22 millimeter wide at the lugs, a very bold, again, lug to lug at 50 millimeters, and a quite thick 14.5 millimeters thick. And it doesn't have a display case back, so there's nothing really much to show you there. The Zelos is coming in at a more moderate, smaller size really, 40 millimeters, 20 millimeter lugs, 45 millimeters lug to lug, and 12 millimeters thick. So again, you're looking at very different aesthetic choices and very different size configurations for these watches, even though technically they're similar with their ETA 2893 Elabore movements, their ceramic bezels, and then their applied indice dials, and the use of bold handsets. Of course, as I've always said, microbrews are really fun for collecting variety. And so it is conceivable that a GMT guy could enjoy both of these side by side in a collection. Personally, for me, the GMT complication is not important enough to have more than one GMT. I'm a bit of a homebody. Nevertheless, this is a very interesting comparison of the relative manufacturing capabilities of these two brands, priced very similarly. So this one is $650 now, but will be going up to $850. And the Globetrotter, on the other hand, is available right now for $800. So roughly within $100 of each other, all told. And that's an exciting thing, that we have micro-brand watches with quality Swiss movements available at the sub $1,000 price range that you can buy new. So I'll be wearing both of these watches. I'll be seeing how they hold up to the rigors of my, I would say, fairly average middle American lifestyle. And if any issues come up, you can fully expect those to be disclosed in the full review of these two watches respectively, which is forthcoming. Guys, I'll be honest, I did not expect 2019 to be the year of the Microbrew watch here on 555 Gear, but there have been some interesting releases featuring both just designs that I like, such as this Notice Avalon, or complications that I'm interested in, as is in these two watches, which I'm showing you for the first time today. My initial takeaway is that probably the Zelos is going to have a broader appeal to watch enthusiasts, but maybe there's some mass appeal in the big and chunky Globetrotter here from Boldr. But I'd love to hear your thoughts below. Is the sub $1,000 Hong Kong or overseas made but Swiss movement powered GMT a niche that you're interested in at all? Are there GMTs that you would choose over this before you would get into the big expensive Swiss brands? Guys, I do want to mention that I received both of these watches from Zelos and Boldr respectively for review. That is to say that they did send these watches to me in compensation for reviewing them. But as you can see, this comparison was not something that was prearranged or preconceived at all. They just happen to be a nice match, and I hope the manufacturers don't mind that I'm showing them side by side. As you know, my reviews are always honest and impartial, and I will always hit on things that I don't like about the watches, including price or how they hold up. And there have been many watches which have not survived my long-term tests. So do hit subscribe if you have not seen some of those results. Hopefully these watches will turn out to be survivors to the 555 gear long-term test. Guys, once again, let me know in the comments below what you prefer, the Zelos Horizons or the Boldr Globetrotter. Let me know in the comments below what you prefer, and we'll see which one ends up being more popular for my subscribers. And if you have good questions, I will answer them in the final review for these watches. Guys, thanks again so much for watching. Hit thumbs up if you made it this far, and make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel here. I'd greatly appreciate it. You'll see lots of great gear and watch content, as well as eventually the full reviews for these watches once I've had a chance to wear them and gather my thoughts about these interesting new offerings.